Hi everyone, Leah here from EurekaCrystalBeads.com with another helpful beading video for you. Before I get started, just a quick reminder to go check out the rest of our channel, and if you like what you see, hit the subscribe button and notification bell and you'll always know when we're posting new content. Today's video is going to be a stitch tutorial on something that's been getting requested quite a bit. Cubic right angle weave. It's also called CRAW for short. This is regarded by many as one of the harder stitches to learn because it's a more advanced version of regular right angle weave, and that we're going to be working in the third dimension. There are lots of great projects and patterns that use CRAW, and we'll be bringing you some fun ones in the future, but I thought it would be best to get started with a tutorial on simply how to do it to get you started and most importantly get you comfortable. So for this we're going to be using 3mm fire polish, which is a great bead to practice with. Because of their shape, they're going to sit together very nicely and a bit easier than seed beads will. So this is a great bead for practicing. We're also going to be using a size 10 needle and some 6-pound fire line. And because I'm just doing a tutorial on how to do the stitch, I'm just working with a comfortable amount here, whatever you'd like. I'm also making sure to use colors that you will most easily be able to see in the video. And you may want to copy this for your own practice, because the better you can see it and the better you can see it come together, the easier time you're going to have knowing where to put your needle for each round that we work on. So to get started, if you're familiar with regular right angle weave, you know that we work flat. It's something that is a stitch that creates a flat structure of some kind. But in this case, we're going to be making something that's three-dimensional. But it's going to start out like regular right angle weave. So we're going to be making units of 4. And if you're not familiar with standard right angle weave, I would recommend you go on over to our YouTube channel and watch some of the videos that we have on right angle weave. I have a great stitch tutorial there for that. Knowing that and being comfortable with regular right angle weave is going to make this that much easier, so I can't stress that enough. So I'm going to be loading on the 4 beads that I need for my first unit. I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to circle back through all 4 of them. Just like that. So my needle is going to pop out of the same place that the thread is popping out of the 4th bead that I picked up. And we're going to pull this down so we get a little bit of a circle. Just like that. Now, just for the sake of practicing, I do like to take the tail and my working thread and tie them in a knot, just so that way the last thing I have to worry about is tension on this first loop. But depending on your project, you may or may not want to do that, but this is just practicing. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pass through the next couple of beads in my circle. I want to be opposite the one that has my tail coming out of it. This just makes it easier to work with that tail, not as much getting in the way. So I'm going to pass through the next couple of beads. Now, one of the things that makes right angle weave a lot easier, or in this case, cubic right angle weave, is your tension. And if you find that you have problems keeping your beadwork tight with right angle weave, I'm going to show you a couple of tricks that will help you, because the tighter your tension can be, or at least the more regular your tension can be, the more your beads are going to sit in the spots that they should sit in. And that's going to make it easier for you to know where you should put your needle. So if you look at our little unit here, there's a couple of visual analogies that a lot of beaders like to use, including myself. So one of them is the idea of a house. So this bottom bead here is the floor, the top bead here is the ceiling, and then we have a wall on either side. A couple of the other analogies you can use, depending on what you find most helpful, is that of a clock. So you have 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and 9 o'clock. You could also use a compass for north, east, south, and west. So whichever one you find easiest. I tend to like the clock analogy because we're, of course, all very familiar with how a clock looks. So that's the one I'm going to be using for this particular video. So now that I'm on an outside bead here, or what I'm going to call an outside bead as we start to grow a little strip of right angle weave, I'm going to pick up 3 more beads because we're making units of 4, but our units of 4 are all connected to each other. So in this case, one of the beads already present is going to be part of this unit of 4. So I'm going to loop back around pull this through. And now I want to pass through the next 2 beads. So in the way that we're looking at it here in the video, I'm going to pass across 12 o'clock and then I'm going to go down 3 o'clock. And if you have to turn your beadwork, that's totally fine. Something that will help you with tension, I guess you could say tip number 1, don't try to go through more than 1 bead at a time. I know that's a nice little cheat method, but sometimes the cheats are not always going to be a good thing. And if you go through more than 1 bead at a time, you will find that your tension is a little bit more of a struggle. Go through 1 bead at a time, so 1 wall at a time, 1 number of your clock at a time, and then give it a nice good pull in the direction that your thread is coming out of that bead. So now that I've gone through this bead here, I'm going to hold my beadwork tight and give it a nice little tug. And that's what's going to help to keep this tightest. So I'm going to do this one more time. Pick up 3. Loop back around through the end bead that I'm coming from, or the 3 o'clock bead of the clock I just finished. Pull that down, and now I want to get to the 3 o'clock bead of this new clock that I just finished. So I'm going to go across 6 o'clock, hold it, give it a tug. I'm going to go up 3 o'clock, hold it, and give it a tug. So what we've done here is basic right angle weave, which is how you start cubic right angle weave. So the next thing we're going to do is simply fold this up so we have 3 walls of a cube, which if you can't see yet, you will be able to see in a minute. So you can see we have these 2 beads facing us right here. What we have is a clock that's just not finished. We have 3 o'clock and we have 9 o'clock. And because we're coming up from 3 o'clock, we're in the perfect position to pick up our 12 o'clock bead. So we're going to pick up another fire polish and head down 9 o'clock. You can see that now 12 o'clock is sitting perfectly in place. Now we're going to pick up 6 o'clock and go up 3 o'clock again. Pull it nice and tight, and you can see that we've made another little clock there. So we have this cool little cube, but it's a little wonky. So there's one more step that you need to do to make this a little bit sturdier, and that step is one that we're going to do right here on the top, and then on the side that is the opposite. So what would have been the bottom to the top that we just saw. We're going to go around the circle here. We're going to go around this top clock because you're going to see that we don't see stitches of thread going through those, and we want to tighten them up just a little bit. And this is going to give us a little more structure to our cube. And like I said, the more structure we have, the easier it's going to be to do this stitch because your beads will be sitting neatly and in the right direction. So as you can see, I'm just going around my little circle here. I'm going to give it a nice little tug. And now I want to flip it over, and I'm going to go around the circle on the opposite side. So I have to just travel through my beads to get there, which is just going up one of the beads on the side and then across one of the ones on the top. Now this is the circle that I want to loop through. So again, I'm just going to circle right through. You can just turn your beadwork as you go. I always find it easiest to work with my needle pointing away from me, so that's how I keep flipping my beadwork, but whatever's most comfortable for you is totally fine as long as you can keep everything straight in your head. All right, so that is how we start our cubic right angle weave with making this little cube. So now in the next part, I'm going to show you how we continue on and we make a tube of cubic right angle weave. Okay, so now to continue on to create our tube, and first of all, you may be wondering, well, what am I going to do with this tube? Well, depending on the beads you use or the colors or the patterns, you can make a beautiful bangle bracelet. Perhaps that will be our next actual project video that we'll do with cubic right angle weave. But to practice, this is the perfect structure to make. So the easiest way to continue is to lay out the beads that you're going to need for the next round. And the reason that I find this helpful is because the less you have to think about how many beads you have to pick up, the easier it is to keep working on the stitch, because then you only have to concentrate on where you have to put your needle. So I'm going to lay out a group of 3 fire polish, and then 2 fire polish, and then 2 fire polish, and then 1 fire polish. that is what we're going to be picking up each time we do a round. So 3, 2, 2, 1. So we're going to make our next clock, and we're going to use the bead that we're coming out of right here. And we're going to pretend like this bead is, while it looks like the 12 o'clock bead of the unit we're looking at, it's going to be the 6 o'clock bead of the next clock. So I'm going to pick up the 3 that I laid out over here, and I'm going to circle back around through that same bead. Just like this. And what we've created is actually like a little flap, but that flap is going to be one of the walls of the next cube we're building. Now, all I'm going to do after I have looped back around through that bead, tighten that back up there, is I'm just going to continue around into the next bead in that round. And when I say round, I mean that flat top that we had just tightened through. We created this wall coming off of it. It's sort of, you can let it stand right up, and we just travel through the next bead. Because remember, we're creating units of 4. For this first one, we had to pick up 3 beads because only 1 bead was present. But for the next 2 units, which are going to be these 2 little groups of beads, 2 beads are already present, which is why we only have to pick up 2 more. So the beads that are present here for us to already work with for the next little unit are the bead that we're coming out of, which is going to be your 6 o'clock, and our 3 o'clock bead is already there, which was the 9 o'clock bead of the previous clock we made. You just turn your beadwork, and now it's going to be the 3 o'clock bead of the next one. So we'll pick up our 2 new fire polish, and we're going to go down the 3 o'clock. You can see we get our little clock here. We're going to go across the 6 o'clock, and then turn your beadwork and go straight across what will be our new 6 o'clock for the next round. So just go right across 1 additional bead. And we're going to repeat that. So we're going to pick up 2 more fire polish, just like this. We're going to go down our new 3 o'clock, which again was the 9 o'clock of the previous clock. We're going to go down our 3 o'clock. And then we're going to go across our 6 o'clock. Turn your beadwork and go across the 6 o'clock of the next unit there. Now, the thing with this last unit, and you'll notice we only have 1 bead sitting here, is that 3 of the beads are already present. That's because this is the last clock, or the last unit we need for this round. So we're going to be utilizing the 9 o'clock of the previous clock, and we're going to be using the 3 o'clock of the very first one that we made. So present here we have our 6 o'clock bead, which is the one we're coming out of. We have our new 3 o'clock, our new 9 o'clock, and we're simply missing our 12 o'clock bead right up there at the top. So we have to travel to that empty area to add it in. So that means I'm going to travel up through my 9 o'clock bead. And the reason I'm traveling up my 9 o'clock bead is because that's the side that my thread was coming out of, the 6 o'clock bead. We're going to pick up our new 12 o'clock right there, head down our 3 o'clock. You can see we've created our next little box there. Now, the steps to get you to the next round is just going to be going through 3 beads, because we need to get up here again to do the next level. So the 3 beads are going to be what I call the 3 diagonal up. So if that's a little phrase that helps you remember it, you can jot that down on a Post-it. So the 3 diagonal up are going to be this bead, and then this bead, and then this bead. We went up diagonally 3 beads. So if you want to talk more in clock language, that's going to be going across the 6 o'clock of the unit you just finished. It's going to be going up the 9 o'clock again of the unit you just finished. And it's going to be going across the 12 o'clock of the very first unit that we created for this level. Just like that. So let me give you a nice good close up here. You can see that we have all these little boxes. Now there's other forms of right angle weave that have dimension like this, and we'll do some videos on those in the future. There's something called prismatic right angle weave, which is where you have more than just 4 sides. Like we're working with a box basically with 4 sides, and as our box gets longer it becomes a rectangle, and then it's just a long tube. But there are versions where you have more than 4 sides, so we'll look at that down the line. But again, you want to master right angle weave before you move to cubic right angle weave, and then you want to master cubic right angle weave before you move to prismatic right angle weave. Okay, so now I'm going to be showing you those same steps, but we're going to move a little quicker. So if you find that it's more helpful for you to see them done a little more fluidly, this is the part of the video that you'll find most helpful. If you want to see them broken down much more slowly and step by step, you can just simply rewind to the earlier part of the video and you can watch it that way. Now, one more trick for tension that's definitely helpful if you find that you struggle with it is that an optional step that you can do is at this top flat part of your tube as it gets longer and longer. When you're at this step, you can go ahead and circle through these beads, and that will help to tighten them up a little bit. Now, if you find that tension is an issue for you, this would be a great step not to skip. However, if you find that tension isn't really too big of a deal, this is an optional step. So we're going to pretend like I either did or didn't do that step, depending on whichever preference you have, and we're going to start our next round. So I've laid out my beads here just as I need them. We're going to pick up 1, 2, 3. We're going to circle back through the 12 o'clock bead of that unit that we're currently sort of coming off of, which is going to be the 6 o'clock bead of the next round. Just like that. Turn your work. Go through what will be our new 6 o'clock bead of the next round to move over to it. Encourage that just to sit right up, because that's what's going to make it easier for you to see where you have to put your needle, is when everything sits nice and straight for you. Now we pick up 2 beads. We circle back down into the other 2 beads that are already there, that are part of the unit we're creating. Continue on into your 6 o'clock bead again. Turn your work. Go through the next 6 o'clock bead of the new unit that we'll create now. Again, pick up 2. Circle down into your unit, into the beads that are already there. Create that unit. Finish it up by going across your 6 o'clock again. Turn your unit, or turn your beadwork. Go across to the next 6 o'clock bead, which again, I'll remind you, is a 12 o'clock bead of the previous unit. And again, this is the one where we have 3 of them present, which is why we only need to pick up 1 now. But we have to get to that empty spot that needs that 1 bead, and right now that's not where our thread is. So we have to continue up into the unit that's already there, into those beads that are already present. Just go up the 1, which is the 9 o'clock. Now we're at the empty spot for our new 12 o'clock. Head down into our 3 o'clock, head across. Now that was the first bead of our 3 diagonal up. So that's the 1, 2, 3. So now we're going to do the second bead of our 3 diagonal up. And then we're going to keep twisting our beadwork and go across the top. Now again, if you find that you want to keep things a bit tighter, you can go right across and through these beads at the very top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little break. I'm going to come back with a few more units finished, just so you can see what it looks like when you have a little bit more done, and we will wrap it up. Okay, so I've done a few more rounds, and you can see we get this really fun little tube here. What's nice about cubic right angle weave is that it has a lovely fluidity about it. So when it's done with seed beads, you can get really beautiful ropes for all of the different pendants that you might like to make. And once you get into a rhythm, it's actually a very nice, repetitive, mindless stitch after a while. And you'll probably find that you won't need to keep laying out that 3, 2, 2, 1 after you get into it a little bit more. Now, that strand of fire polish that I used was 3 millimeter in size. I got about 1 inch out of it with 4 beads left over. So I would need some more beads to do another round. But I do have to say, fire polish is one of my favorite types of beads to have on hand for learning a lot of new stitches because of the way that they fit together. and the way they sit, especially beads that don't have to interlock quite as tightly as something like peyote stitch. For things like this, I think they are fantastic because they're easy to see and they're going to sit together a lot easier than something like a seed bead. So learning right angle weave and especially cubic right angle weave is going to be great to utilize those fire polish. So hopefully you have a nice little stash of a collection, just like I do, and they come in so many different colors, so you can definitely find one that's easiest for your eyes to see. I can't stress enough that really cubic right angle weave is regarded as one of the tougher stitches to learn. So you're definitely going to want to make sure that you're using a fireline color that you can easily see, and a fire polish color in a finish that your eyes like to look at, and that's going to make this that much more easy. Now, I thought this purple was pretty good for filming, so I did link it below if you want to use that same one, and I'm also linking you to the Eureka Crystal Beads website to our whole selection of 3mm fire polish beads and fire polish beads in general, because like I said, they're a great bead to practice with, but because of the array of colors and finishes, they're also beautiful to utilize when you're not just practicing and you want a really great price point to work with. So that wraps it up, folks. Thanks for watching. Make sure to visit us on over at eurekacrystalbeads.com for everything that I used in this video, and hopefully for any of your other beading and jewelry needs. And I hope you have fun with cubic right angle weave. Bye.